Martin, you know when companies are thinking about psychosocial safety, and especially as you rightly mentioned, that there's legislative requirements in some countries, and we're talking about the context of Australia, but I believe there are other countries as well that has this. What have you seen are the most common misperceptions that companies might have about the way that they approach the topic and the way they think about it generally?
Yeah, look, what we've seen in Australia and certainly like the UK is starting to go down this path and implement legislation. Um, I was recently over in Taiwan speaking at a conference over there, and the Taiwanese government and the Taiwanese regulator is looking at legislative change to address workplace bullying specifically. The regulator in Taiwan was saying they have a huge issue with workplace bullying complaints. Um, what we've seen in Australia is really a bit of sort of a lack of clarity and understanding from businesses. They generally don't really understand where to start, so they don't do anything, and that's probably the worst thing you can do. So the data we've seen in Australia for the last few years is when somebody's physically injured at work, there's a workers' compensation scheme which provides for that worker's medical bills and salary. The average cost of a physical injury to that compensation scheme is about 60,000 Australian dollars per claim. The average cost for a psychological injury is $300,000 per claim. 600, six
What?
times. Yeah, yeah. That's the average cost per claim for a psychological injury. And it's generally because with a physical injury, you can see the injury, and it's treated by a medical doctor. But with the psychological injuries, they are treated by psychiatrists and psychologists, and generally two or three opinions, and they're expensive, and the bills jump rack up pretty quickly. And the data has showed that it takes on average 3 to 5 times longer for somebody to return to work after a psychological injury than a physical, if they ever do at all. So, so whilst the numbers of psychological injury is still lower than physical injury, they're rising quicker, and the cost of them is significantly higher, and it takes longer for people to come back to work than a physical injury. So you don't need too many psychological injuries for that to really impact the workers' compensation scheme, and the cost to business. So one of the questions I get from executives is like, why should we bother? And the reality is, well, first of all, it's the law, you have to do it. Secondly, it makes good business sense. There's a lot of research to say that if you treat people well, then their productivity increases, absenteeism reduces, presenteeism reduces, people are more engaged, they don't leave, they stay in the workplace because generally they're happier. So so there's some productivity benefits to doing the right thing. And lastly, it impacts your bottom line. If you're psychologically hurting people, they're expensive claims, and your insurance will start to increase significantly. So there are some sort of solid business reasons to do it, as well as like morally and ethically, it's just the right thing to treat people well.